Good evening. Welcome to the June 3rd, 2025 regular Planning Commission meeting. Just a quick note here before we do roll call, just to turn your phone on vibrate or silence while we have this meeting so we don't have any disruptions. With that, we'll call the roll.
Bauman.
Here.
Iverson.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kibler.
Here.
Longton. Menham. Offerdahl.
Here.
Pontanilla.
Here.
Trudell. Wolf.
Here.
Amick.
Here.
Doctor.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, with that, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4, Planning Commission approval of the May 2025 meeting minutes. That, I'll take a motion.
Yeah, I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion to approve by Commissioner Kibler and a second by Wolf, Commissioner Wolf. Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the discussion and call the roll.
Bauman.
Yes.
Iverson.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kibler.
Yes.
Offerdahl.
Yes.
Pontanilla.
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Amick.
Yes.
Doctor.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5.1, 1201 4th Street Northwest Conditional Use Permit. Public hearing request by John Subick, owner for a request of a conditional use permit on property zoned R1, single-family residential district with a request for an accessory dwelling unit. Legal description for the property is Lot 55, Sunset Hills Addition to the City of Minot, Ward County, North Dakota. The address is 1201 4th Street Southwest. That will turn it over to staff for findings and report.
Chairman, members of the commission. Here is a map of the surrounding area. The subject property is bound in black with the 300-foot notification area in pink. The property is located in central Minot, and the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit. Here is the proposed floor plan as submitted by the applicant for an apartment within a single-family home. The current zoning of the property is R1 single-family residential with C1, C2, R2, R2B, R3, and R3B all adjacent. We're not that far off Broadway here, so. The subject property is designated as suburban residential in the City of Minot's 2040 comprehensive plan. Adjacent districts are general commercial and urban residential. Here we have some photos of the property. The one on the left is facing east. It's showing the front of the home that for the application, the one that would actually contain the accessory dwelling unit. On the right, you are looking north down 12th Avenue Southwest. It is a corner lot. On the left here, we have facing west. These are the single-family homes across the street. And on the right, we are facing south down 4th Street Northwest. Here's the staff's finding of fact that can be found in the staff's written report. Planning Commission has the authority to hear this case and decide whether it should be approved or denied with or without conditions. Staff is recommending approval based on finding of fact with recommended conditions. The recommended conditions from staff are the accessory dwelling unit and the primary dwelling unit will remain owned by the same property owner. At least one on-site parking space shall be provided for the accessory dwelling unit. No more than one accessory dwelling unit is permitted on the subject property. The accessory dwelling unit must be at least 300 square feet in area but cannot exceed 960 square feet total floor area and shall not exceed 30% of the living area of the primary dwelling unit. An exception may be granted for basement apartments that occupy roughly the same area as the primary dwelling unit on the main floor. If the accessory dwelling unit's primary entrance is not the same as that of the principal dwelling unit, it shall be less visible from the street view than the principal dwelling unit's entrance. And accessory dwelling unit stairway may not be constructed on the front of the principal dwelling unit. The accessory dwelling unit must be designed and constructed to allow conversion of the accessory dwelling unit back into the single-family residential space in the future. With that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? Vice Chair Ballman, yep.
Principal Planner Diedrichson, I know when we went through the revisions of the land development ordinance, the zoning ordinance steering committee, all of those things that kind of got us to where we are today, accessory dwelling units was part of the conversation and just a discussion point for a lot of things. I'm wondering if you can, and you or staff, just kind of share a little bit about maybe the economic impact of accessory dwelling units in terms of the impact on the broader community, the tax base, et cetera.
Chairman Offerdahl, Vice Chairman Bauman. Accessory dwelling units are becoming more accepted nationwide. It's a great thing and a great opportunity for the city to have this type of thing included in our zoning ordinance as a possibility now. The economic impact on the city as far as long-term maintenance of infrastructure, which is far and away our most expensive cost as a city, is minimal. The sewer line is already there, the water line is already there, the street is already built, the garbage truck is already driving by every week. So this would be vertical growth for the city, which is very much the least expensive growth. It increases our tax base. It increases the value of the home overall. And with that minimal investment by the city through infrastructure and the developer through infrastructure, we see an increase in our tax base overall.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Diedrichson, I wonder if you couldn't run us through some of the history of putting these sort of additional structures within R1 zones. I know when I lived in Eastwood Park, for example, there was a lot of consternation in Eastwood Park about how many people had these ancillary dwellings and were renting to people outside of their family. And the rule that was put on there, and if you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you could maintain that dual residency so long as it was maintained as a dual residency. But if it fell or lapsed into usage for more than a year, it returned to R1 zoning. And I point that out only as a means by which to maybe get the dialogue going about, we've talked about the economic impact not being a problem, but there are often a social impact as a result of having people who are not family members in neighborhoods that don't otherwise have multifamily dwellings. And I don't know if there's anyone here to talk against this. If not, I'll certainly vote for it. But for example, also, if you have a roommate, you don't have to declare their income, right? But if you put up a wall and create a separately zoned space, you do. So I'm just wondering about what are the factors involved that are social as well as economic, and whether there's any concern from the neighbors in this R1 zone, because there typically has been in the past.
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Kibler, I guess our land use ordinance doesn't really cover the social impacts. It does allow it. It does allow the planning commission to set conditions on conditional use permits. However, we don't really touch on the social impacts of land use. It's usually focused primarily on the economic impact of that could be placed on the city or surrounding property owners. The only thing that really speaks to that within our land development ordinances there is a cap on the number of non-related people that can occupy a single dwelling unit. Enforcement gets very tricky on that one. The other protection that is written in here, and it is part of one of the conditions, is you can't create a condo type situation here. The primary dwelling owner must remain the owner of both units. So whoever owns the house has to own the apartment. You can't do like a condominium type deed sale for the home. As far as expiration of the conditional use permit, it would expire with change of use or violation of any one of the conditions set out in the conditional use permit.
If you could elaborate on change of use, is there a time limit on change of use attached to this, or?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Kibler, no, that would be if our zoning ordinance does require that it be easily converted back to a single-family home. That would be if someone were to come in and apply for a building permit to remodel the interior of the structure back to a single-family home. This conditional use permit would then become void. And if they ever in the future wanted to re-subdivide the property into 2 units, again, they would be required to apply for another conditional use permit to do so.
Yeah, thank you. And just to confirm, this doesn't expand the footprint of this home at all. It's just an internal reworking?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Kibler, that is correct. The footprint of this home will remain the same. It's an interior remodel of a single-family home to include an apartment.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. With that, we'll open the public hearing, and I'll first offer if the applicant's in the audience to speak on behalf. I'll welcome them to come up if they'd like. Come on up.
Hello. John Subik. If you have any questions for me, it's my first time doing anything like this, so appreciate your guys' time. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Any questions? We may call you back up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, public hearing's still open. Is there anybody that wishes to speak for or against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak for or against? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
I'll go ahead and move to approve based on staff recommendations and findings of fact.
I'd second that.
Motion to approve by Vice Chair Bauman, second by Commissioner Kibler. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, call a roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Johnson. Yes. Kibler,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanilla,
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 5.2, Outlot 20 Southeast Quarter Section 27-155-83, conditional use permit. Public hearing request by Land and Ball. Evergreen Storage LLC, owner for a request of a conditional use permit on the property zone C2 General Commercial District with the request for commercial self-storage facility. Legal description of the property is Outlot 20, lying in the south half, southeast quarter, section 27, Township 155, North Range 83 West, Ward County. Property address is 1900 Highway 2 and 52 Bypass West. That will turn it over to staff for findings and report.
Chairman Offerdahl, members of the commission. Again, we find our subject property bound in black and a 300-foot notification area in pink. It is located in central Minot. right off of the bypass, and the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for commercial self-storage. Here is the preliminary site plan as presented by the applicant. They would be tied very closely to this preliminary site plan as far as function. It is missing several elements, landscaping, buffering, things of that nature that would be assessed at the time of building permit application. But this would be the rough draft of the site plan to which they would be closely tied. The current zoning of the property is C2. General commercial with mobile home community, single-family residential, R3 and R3C, all adjacent. The future land use designation of the property is general commercial. It has suburban residential, parks and recreation, urban residential, manufactured home community, and suburban residential, all adjacent. Here are some photos of the property, just to kind of locate you guys. This is the old Casa Motel site. It was a vacant hotel with a mobile home park on property. Facing north, you can kind of see it'd be the west side of the old Casa Motel and some of the vacant mobile home lots. Facing northwest, you can see the last remaining mobile home that is on the property. Facing southwest, you're looking over the bypass, and facing east, you can see the billboard on the property and the front of the vacant motel. Here's the staff's finding of fact. It can be found in staff's written report. The Planning Commission has the authority to hear this case and decide whether it should be approved or denied with or without conditions. Staff is recommending approval based on our findings of fact and with recommended conditions. The recommended conditions are as follow: a landscaping plan that meets the buffering and landscaping requirements of the City of Minot's Land Development Ordinance must be submitted and approved by planning staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. Stormwater management plan approved by the engineering department is required for development. A site plan that is approved by the Community Development and Engineering Departments is required for development. Access locations must be approved by the city engineer as part of the site plan review. Sidewalks are not required in this area. With that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? Vice Chair Bowman.
Our last remaining mobile home, are there occupants in there, or is it vacant?
Chairman Offerdahl, Vice Chairman Bauman, I do believe it is vacant. I'm not aware of any residents actually residing in the home at this time.
Second question. One of the things I like about when we rezone properties to kind of fit in with everything else is that the residents nearby and the greater community gets the benefit of landscaping upgrades and kind of a little bit of a touch up to our community with new trees, shrubs, all of those things. Can you walk me and the public through a little bit what we can expect in terms of landscaping requirements and a landscaping plan from this property?
Chairman Offerdahl, Vice Chairman Bauman, there is a mobile home district right behind it because this is a commercial development that will require a 20-foot landscaped buffer yard, including a grass landscape and a buffer yard planting trees. That's one every 20 feet. And there's a mix of coniferous and deciduous tree requirements in the land development ordinance. The purpose is to cut down light and noise pollution from a commercial development into a residential neighborhood. So that would be the rear property line would require that buffering. On the front of the property, they were required to provide a 10-foot landscaped street tree planting, which is one every 50 feet. That's the general requirements. They are allowed to use chain link fencing in the commercial district now with the change in our zoning ordinance, and they aren't required to provide any landscaping or buffering to the commercial properties adjacent on either side. But they do have to buffer from the road and from the residential neighborhood behind.
Thank you. Final question, if I may. We've got folks, families, houses just to the north of this, and I know that sometimes commercial storage spaces can be a little bit overkill on lighting, especially in the evening, and just really indiscriminate about blasting into their neighbor's yard. So what protections do those residents to the north have to basically make sure that they're not getting a spotlight in their south-facing windows from this storage space?
Chairman Offerdahl, Vice Chairman Bauman, we have a light trespass ordinance. That's a municipal code, so it would be enforced by the police department. But light trespass is covered in the municipal code. So the lighting and the LDO does cover things like light shielding. So when they submit the site plan, they would have to submit a lighting plan with that. It would be reviewed to make sure that the lighting was properly shielded so that they're lighting their property and no adjacent properties. And if that shielding were to fail, blow off in a windstorm, in any way not be functioning to prevent light trespass, there is a mechanism for enforcement after initial development as well.
Okay. If you were one of the residents who live just to the north of it, do you feel like our land development ordinance protects you and your family from that light pollution or infringement of lighting?
Chairman Offerdahl, Vice Chairman Bauman, I feel like we have done everything in our power as the city to try to prevent light pollution and light trespass from commercial properties onto adjacent residentials with our shielding requirements and with after development enforcement. It is something that we do pay close attention to because it can be a nuisance.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a point of clarification. Now, this cold storage can be in a C1 zoned district, right? So are we approving a plat or a landscaping plan? What is it that we're actually approving?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Kibler, it is allowed in the C2 district. However, it does require a conditional use permit in order to be developed in the C2 district. So that is what they are looking for, is a conditional use permit to allow for commercial self-storage.
And that specifically needs a conditional use permit because?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Kibler, because of the possibility of nuisance. It can be a high traffic area. As Vice Chair Bauman, for security reasons, they like to keep them well lit and things of that nature. So just ensuring that the developer is properly buffering their property from any adjacent properties. Specifically this one, we're looking at that mobile home park to the rear and making sure that the residents of that aren't getting any nuisance on their property from this.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Just to
Mr. Allen.
piggyback on the landscaping, the developer had asked for the trees to the north be part of their buffer. Will there be more trees to the north?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Amick, there are different requirements within the land development ordinance. Along the street frontage, they're required to provide a certain amount of landscaping there's different spacing. So for street trees, they're required to place one every 50 feet, and they can be of any variety, deciduous or coniferous. In the rear, it's called buffer yard planting requirements. So they have to have twice the width of the buffer yard, and the planting is closer spaced. They have to be 20 feet apart. And there's a requirement that most of them be coniferous trees, and that is so this buffer is intended to cut down light and noise. And in the wintertime, deciduous trees do nothing to cut down light and noise. So that's the reason why we've placed coniferous trees as the primary planting in buffer yards, because year-round they're providing that protection.
And you can see here, we got a little chat on this that looks like the applicant is saying for clarification, they would remove all the trees and then plant anew. If that answers your question either. Any further questions for city staff? Okay, with that, I'll open the public hearing Does not look like the applicant's on site here, but if he's available and wants to speak on the behalf of this, he's more than welcome to. If not, I'll continue with
I
the
think
public.
he's raising his hand.
Oh, there he is. Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commission. I appreciate your time this evening. For clarification on one of the questions, we would be removing all of the trees and planting the new required trees that are required per code. Also, as you guys have, your city staff did a great job in detailing out the plan. It is still technically a live mobile home trailer park at this point in time. There is one remaining, and there's that is vacant, and so that would end up going as well. In addition to the old Casa Motel, that would be torn down. So this entire property would be basically replanned for cold storage, self-storage. So that's the goal. I mean, when you look at the setbacks and everything that we have, I think what we can do is turn this Casa's been around for decades, turn this lot that has kind of turned into sometimes a mess, especially if you ask PD, turn it into a much nicer development that our city needs at the moment. So I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ball? Thank you. Continue with the public hearing. Anybody who wish to speak for or against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak for or against? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
Approve is recommended.
Okay.
I'll second.
We got approval by Commissioner Amick and a second by Commissioner Doctor. Okay. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, call a roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kibler,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanilla,
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Amick, Doctor,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5.3, Lichty Homes 7th edition. Public hearing request by Kurt Lichty, Lichty Homes owner for request of preliminary plat, zone change, and annexation of property zoned. MH Mobile Home District and AG District. Preliminary plat for Lichty Homes 7th edition. Legal description for the properties are Lot 1, Lichty Homes 5th edition to the city of Minot, North Dakota, south half, northeast quarter, less lots 6, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and portion of Lichty Homes 2nd and 3rd editions, Walmart. Lichty Homes 5th edition, road and highway right-of-way, Section 2, Township 154 North, Range 83 West, Ward County. Property addresses are unassigned, and the community is located at 3725 10th Street Southwest. That, turn it over to city staff for findings and report.
Chairman offered all members of the commission. So to give you guys an idea where we're at, the property is set off the road, so it's unaddressed, but we are talking about the mobile home community adjacent and behind the Walmart, and the agricultural land just to the south of the Walmart, on the Lichty Homes sale and service site down there. So the outlined, the property, subject property is outlined in black because a portion of this property falls outside of city limits and in the ETJ. We just went with an all-around 600-foot notification buffer, both inside and outside of the city. They are requesting a plat, annexation, and zone change. The letter of intent can be found in the staff report. They're asking for a very large application. It's simply to change, if you look at the center of this proposed plat, you see that small hash marked area right there. That is the only change that they're, substantive change that they are looking to make. They need to move that property line. Someone did not measure twice before they dropped the piers for the back mobile homes there. And they're very close to the property line. And the backyards were actually encroaching into the ag land to the south. However, with it being adjacent to city limits as a separate zone and the ETJ boundary there, it required them to replat, annex, and rezone for that small sliver of land. So really, that is the substantive change of this application, is to move a property line. Had this been inside the city and zoned the same, it would have been a minor plat. But it abuts city limits, so we have to take it all, we got to pull the string all the way through on all the changes that are going to need to be made for this to happen. There's no expansion in the mobile home park in as far as number of lots, number of homes in there. It's just a line adjustment to bring the property line to where the acknowledged property line is. So where the backyards actually end is where he's placing the new property line. However, it will clean up that very long legal description, creating Lot 1 and Lot 2 of Lichty Home 7th Edition. And we'll get rid of all of those outlot descriptions. It's always nice when we can clean up those legals. So we do get that out of this deal. As you can see, the current zoning is mobile home community and agricultural land. Adjacent, we have C2, C4, which is the planned commercial district that includes Walmart, and R1, single-family residential, to the west. The future land use map is very complicated out here, but the two subject properties are mobile home community and ag. We have all of the different kinds of commercials and several different kinds of neighborhood future designations over here. I'll let you read through them and save my voice, but it's a very diverse neighborhood as far as uses. So here we can see the subject property facing southwest. You're looking off the edge of the back lot of the small strip mall adjacent to Walmart. It was really the only view we could get without trespassing. So you've got two different views of the coulee. Here you can kind of looking down towards Highway 83, headed south out of town. But this is the area in which the property line will be shifted. Here is staff finding of fact. It can be found in staff's written report. The Planning Commission has the authority to hear this case and provide a recommendation to the City Council on whether the zone change and preliminary plat should be approved, and then the City Council will review and make a decision on annexation at the same time as they hear those two cases. Staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt staff finding of fact and recommend approval to the City Council for a zoning map amendment from agricultural district to mobile manufactured home district, and the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat without conditions. With that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? Vice Chair Bauman?
I think I just want to clarify, and maybe the public will appreciate this too. Essentially, this is a lot of words to fix a mismeasured backyard line for that Lot 1 and kind of bringing it all up to legal standards. We're not adding anything, we're not subtracting anything, we're just kind of fixing a mismeasurement. Is that a correct summation?
Chairman Offerdahl, Vice Chairman Bauman, that is correct. Unfortunately for the applicant, that backyard line that needed to be fixed is also the city limits, and it is also the boundary of an adjacent property that is zoned differently than the property that the mobile home district sits on.
So it's basically a really little string that's attached to a whole lot of other strings, and if we start pulling, everything's got to come with it.
That is correct. There's a lot of lines laid over top of that line that all needed to be adjusted in order to move that back property line.
Okay, thanks.
Any additional questions for city staff? Okay, seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. I'm not sure if the applicant's available to speak on behalf. They're more than welcome. If not, we will allow anybody to speak on behalf or against this agenda item. Anybody want to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
I'll move to approve based on staff recommendations and findings of fact.
I'll second.
Okay, so we got Commissioner Vice Chair Bauman with the motion to approve and a second by Commissioner Erickson. Any discussion? Go ahead.
You know, I just want to go on record saying thanks to the applicant. I'm sorry that there's so many hoops to jump through. we got all the hoops and you're jumping so well. We really appreciate it. I know that some of this legal, jargon can just be really, really confusing, but I do appreciate the effort of the applicant and their willingness to clean this all up correctly and work with, the city of Minot to make sure that all of our P's and Q's are in the right place. So just a thanks to the applicant. I know this is a headache. Great to have it done, though. I'm glad we can clean it up.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, call the roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kibler,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanilla,
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 5.4, Plan View Addition, Lot 2, interim use permit. Public hearing request by Randy Taylor owner for a request of an interim use permit on property zone C2 General Commercial District with request for a temporary outdoor storage of construction materials. Legal description of the property is Lot 2, Plainview addition to the city of Minot. Property address is 4200 16th Avenue Southeast. With that, we'll turn it over to staff for finding and report.
Thank you, Chairman. I have some supplemental material to give out before I go through all the slides. One of them is a petition signed by the neighbors in opposition to this agenda item we're about to hear. And then the other is a letter from one of the neighbors also speaking in opposition of it. I will read that during the public comment, but I'm going to just walk around and give all of you the documents and then a few minutes just to glance through them.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll find the subject property bound in black with the 300-foot notification boundary in pink. This area is in the southeast. Just for a landmark, just to the north of this is the gooseneck implement. The proposed storage area boundary is located at that white hashed line in the northern half of the parcel, just north of the pond. The subject property is zoned C2, which is our general commercial district. It's flanked by some single-family residential to the west and manufactured home community to the east. Our future land use designation map has this area as suburban residential, flanked by light industrial to the north, agricultural and open space to the southeast, or southwest, sorry. Here's some site photos facing south. You can see directly into the area where the items are currently stored, along with other debris. Facing north, you're looking at the backside. Oh, it's okay. Of the agricultural dealership, Butler Cat. Facing west down 16th Avenue Southeast, and then facing east down 16th Avenue Southeast. This permit, as it is evaluated by the LDO, has a very narrow scope. What we are allowed to discuss tonight is the following. The criteria the Planning Commission shall authorize an interim use permit only if they find that the following criteria are met. Section 9.1-5C1, an interim use permit is the preferred method for authorizing the specific use as defined by the zoning use matrix. 9.1-5C.2, the date or event will terminate the use can be identified with certainty. Section 9.1-5C.3, the interim use will not impose additional costs on the public if it is necessary for the public to take the property in the future. And then finally, section 9.1-5C4. The interim use will be subject to, by agreement with the owner, any conditions that the Planning Commission has deemed appropriate for permission of the use, including a condition that the owner will provide an appropriate financial surety to cover the costs of removing the interim use and any interim structures upon expiration of the interim use permit. Here are the staff findings. I will go through them. The applicant has submitted a complete application. The property is Zone C2, which is our general commercial district on the official zoning map and has a suburban residential designation on our future land use map. Section 9.1-5C1 is satisfied as the preferred method of permitting temporary storage via our interim use permit as per Table 2.2 of our land development ordinance. Section 9.1-5C2 is satisfied with the inclusion of a condition memorializing the termination date of this permit as October 17th of 2025. Section 9.1-5C3 is satisfied with the inclusion of a condition requiring the removal of materials not associated with the underlying grandfathered gravel mining use. And section 9.1-5C4 is satisfied as no further conditions are warranted other than the relating to the memorializing the termination date and the requirements to remove the items being stored as described under this permit. The Planning Commission has the authority to hear the interim use permit case and decide whether it should be approved or denied with or without conditions. The public notice requirements were met. The hearing was legally noticed and posted, and hearing was held and conducted under the requirements of North Dakota Century Code and Minot City ordinances. Staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt the staff findings of fact and approve the interim use permit for temporary storage with the following recommendations. 1, a termination date of October 17th of 2025. Prior to the termination date, the owner shall completely remove materials not associated with the underlying gravel mining grandfathered use. 3, temporary storage of materials shall be restricted to the area outlined in Exhibit 5. That was the second slide showing the hashed white marking of the northern part of that parcel. 4, and based on public input, the Planning Department recommends that the access for the storage of materials be restricted to the existing north driveway off 16th Avenue Southeast. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? Okay. Seeing none, we will open the public hearing. And first off, I'd like to give the applicant the chance to come up and speak on their behalf if they would like. Okay, seeing none, or seeing the applicant not available, I'll open the public hearing to anyone that is in opposition or for this agenda item. Come on up.
Chairman, if it's okay, I'll read this letter now, if that's all right. To whom it may concern, I am a recipient of a letter dated May 16th, 2025, in regard to Randy Taylor's request for a temporary outdoor storage of construction materials. As someone who has resided within this community for over a decade, I strongly oppose this proposal and urge the Commission to deny this request. I currently own and reside at residential property located 2 lots over from Mr. Taylor's property, parcel number MI 29 B39 020 0090. My community, as well as myself, would incur many of the detrimental impacts if this request is not denied. Over the years, Mr. Taylor has used the lot to store heavy machinery, resulting in mud and rocks entering the street and driveway of our community. If he is allowed to use this lot as a temporary outdoor storage of construction materials, the amount of dirt and rocks that would be kicked up into not only my property, but others around me would be astronomical. The increased traffic would also result in disturbance of the peace within the community. Who knows when Mr. Taylor would utilize the storage lot? This could be morning, afternoon, or even the middle of the night. I stand for a majority of people when I say nobody would like being disturbed by the noise of heavy machinery racing up your street, especially at all hours of the day. For many of us in the community, we strive to maintain the curbside appeal and have worked endlessly to turn our houses into homes. By allowing Mr. Taylor to use his lots as a storage for his construction materials, it not only brings an eyesore that we all work hard to avoid, but it will also drive the property value of the whole neighborhood down. Additionally, who knows what Mr. Taylor is going to be storing within this lot? As someone who enjoys being outside with my family and friends, I do not want to have to worry about what is being released into the air every time Mr. Taylor comes to utilize his property. Dozens of harmful particulate matter could be suspended in the air without the knowledge of anyone. I shouldn't have to fear for what particles I could inhale every time I step outside. Furthermore, the construction materials would increase the rodent activity. The neighborhood is located in the outermost boundaries of town and sits in a more undeveloped area. In fact, his lot currently has a large number of rodents and other small animals that can be seen running around at all hours of the day. I fear that the increase of potential hiding spots would encourage these creatures to make homes within the debris and equipment that would sit there for extended periods at a time. In fact, Mr. Taylor has allowed an abandoned mobile home to sit on the lot for a number of months, making the perfect home for wildlife. Storing these items will also result in increased criminal activity within the neighborhood. Currently, we do not have any street lights. The only lights come from the houses that keep their outside lights on all night. This would make it exceptionally easy for someone to come steal anything that Mr. Taylor leaves on his property. I believe that he would not take any action to secure the intended area, putting everyone at risk of becoming a target of potential loss. Lastly, I would like to touch on Mr. Taylor's lack of future intentions for the property. Over the course of the last couple of years, he has made no initiative to try to develop the property. In fact, he doesn't even care to maintain the weeds or grass, but rather relies on the ATV traffic to wear down a path for him to enter and exit. I fear that if Mr. Taylor is approved to use this lot as storage, he will be dumping and forgetting whatever he places. In his proposal, he states that it would be a temporary use, but I question his future intentions as he has done nothing to improve the current conditions. I strongly encourage the members of the commission to oppose Mr. Taylor's proposal. I believe that intentions of this proposed action will bring more harm than good to my neighborhood. As you ponder the idea of this proposal, picture yourself in my shoes. I believe this is something you wouldn't want to see in your neighborhood. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Dwayne and Renee Hiller.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open. If anybody wishes to speak on this agenda item, feel free to come up.
Where the mobile home is, where it's been left, it's kind of like a construction office. It has been vandalized. It has been spray painted. It has had broken windows. We have kids that come up, drop who knows what off, and leave, and somebody else comes and picks something up. The amount of traffic that was there a couple years ago, he was digging out the side of the hill. We had large semi-side dumps coming up and down the street, fully loaded in our residential cul-de-sac. And there's not a lot of children out there, but there are some children. And not only that, it's a nuisance. If you're sitting outside, who wants a big semi coming up and down your road, you know, in the middle of the afternoon, early evening? It's just not even, it doesn't feel right. I moved in that area because I was flooded. It was peaceful, it was quiet. The pond was absolutely gorgeous. We had all kinds of little wildlife back there, geese, ducks, deer. Now we don't see any. Over the winter, we caught more mice around our house with traps than ever before. And the amount of rabbits that we see out there now, who knows what else is going to be over there in a few years. And he dumps all those large pieces of concrete. Concrete is never going to disintegrate. It's going to stay there. You bury it, Well, it's still gonna be there. It's a nuisance, and I'm just afraid of what it's gonna turn into down the road. Not only that, it brings down the value of everybody's property out there. So I thank you for your time and listening to what I had to say.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, yeah, could you write your name down too on the, there's just
Sure.
a sheet of paper. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open if anybody wishes to speak on this agenda item. Anybody wish to speak? Yes, sir. If you could just jot your name down there on that sheet of paper, that'd be great.
Name's Ted Duxer. I live near this. I've been there since '79, so that's before any of these houses were even put up there. It's been the gravel pit was originally owned by George Vitco, and then there's gravel products that are just to the north of that. Like I said, all these houses came in later, so this is it was initially a gravel pit. The reason I'm come up here is because we were asked to sign a petition. And the petition that came and what they told me was going on, some of it seemed hard to believe. Because I knew the gravel pit, I knew who owned it. George Vitco had owned it, then Gravel Products bought it, and now Terry's bought it. It's always been commercial down there. And he's put backfill down there, rocks, concrete. He's basically his backfill. He's fill in. But I was told that he's flooding some areas or some houses down there. What it is when George Vitco started that gravel pit, he dug down to the gravel and he hit the Sundry Aquifer. That's the water that they run down there. So what George did is old Russian, he took his backhoe and dug all the way down to the west. Is going to drain this water, the Sundry Aquifer. And I told him, you're never going to drain that. It's too much water. So that pond down there has been basically kind of dammed in one end. And when we get a heavy rain, every once in a while that water will flow and it'll go down the ditches. So that might be the flooding they're getting. And to solve that flooding, simple enough to reinforce that dam there. And I see he's starting to fill in that little pond down there with his backfill. And once he does that, there's not going to be any water problem down there. I guess I'm not leaning one way or another. I was told that about these trucks, semi-trucks going up and down the residential areas. And I thought, well, that's not, or even zoned for that type of heavy truck. So I was curious about what actually happened there. And talking about, as far as the petition, they're telling me that besides the north entrance, that basically is one entrance going down, and the trucks were traveling around the backside to get in this residential area. And I actually hadn't been down there for a while, so I went down there and looked, and there's no way that a truck can get from the residential area into this gravel pit. The only access is that one road. So it kind of made me, the homeowner here said they had the trucks going back and forth. I mean, I never seen them myself because I live up on the hill, but the main reason I'm here is because the petition that was presented to you guys, it was a lot of information there that wasn't correct. That's what bothered me about the flooding and now the rodents and things like that. I can probably see that. Most of the stuff I've seen down there has been backfill, rocks, concrete, gravel, dirt, from like digging out a basement or whatever. And then he's basically taken that and filled in, made it flat. He's somewhat contouring it down there. So I don't know. I guess I don't live down next to it, so I couldn't say for sure. So I guess one way or another, the only thing I had concerned about was materials he was going to store. But then I see here that there's an expiration date, that by this date it's gone. Well, that's fine. I guess I don't see a problem there. Noise in the morning, I don't know. There again, too, I'm not there to hear the trucks driving that early in the morning or at night. I don't know. I'm not even sure what I'm giving up here right now, but the main thing was that petition kind of bothered me that some of the things that were said there didn't seem to be true. And that's the only reason I'm here. So not for or against it. As driving by it, an eyesore. He has machinery down there. He stores his winter materials and things like that. It's a construction site. I mean, I don't know what to say for or against it or whatever, but initially I thought they'd be talking more about this flooding and things like that, and that's the main reason I thought I'd mention it, because the flooding's only if that little dam gets broken, then the aquifer just starts draining. So, I don't know. Not making any sense here, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, if that's any information to help you one way or another decide if you can go or not, thank you.
Any questions? Okay, public hearing still open on agenda 5.4.
Rob Carey, neighbors with Renee, right next to Randy's property. Ooh, didn't know that swiveled. Yeah, it's been going on for a long time, and I know some of the things that I had listed in my letter that I sent to the commission don't necessarily concern this interim hearing, but he has been using that residential lot as access to get to his commercial lot. And as Renee said, trucks up and down constantly, constant noise. The drainage that he was speaking of is in our backyard. It's on our lot. And I can see directly out of our back window, seeing all the debris that he's putting into the pond. And he's been storing axles in busted up buildings and trailers there for years already. So I don't even know why we're having this hearing, because he's already doing what he wants to do. And I've sent letters, multiple letters and emails, and nothing's been done. So that's all I really have to say. Everything else has been spoken about.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yep, appreciate you coming up. Thank you. Public hearing still open for agenda item 5.4. If anybody wishes to speak on behalf or against this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'll turn it over to the commissioners for a motion.
I'll go ahead and move to deny this interim use permit based on its failure to align with the future land use map for the city of Minot.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny by Vice Chair Bauman, and we had a second by Commissioner, was it Wolf? Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is, I think, a lot of weight when you've got more than 20 people signing a petition against something. Now, a lot of the reasons that are in this letter seem to concern problems that Mr. Taylor has with the property that have nothing to do with his request. And my initial thought would be to approve this request, or recommend to approve this request, because it's for such a short window of time. And yet, he's not here. And it seems to me, if you've got so many neighbors so angry or upset by the way that you are, living with the property now, and you make this kind of request and they come out en masse to stand against it, I see a lot of the reasons for standing against it are not sound and not connected to this proposal. Rats, property values don't really go down in 6 months per se, and if he's got a sunsetted usage, it'll go away. It seems to me the larger problem has to do with this gentleman and the way he treats this property and the way he, conducts business in relation to this property. I'm going to vote to deny because he's not here, because so many people are against him and he's not here to represent himself, and he should be. He should be here to talk about what kind of construction materials are going to be on this site. And he should be here to talk a little bit about maybe having a limit to when those trucks can move, so they're not bothering people at night. But we don't get that kind of give and take because he's not here. So I'll be voting against his proposal.
Chairman Offerdahl, if I may.
Yes, please.
I think that it's important that we speak with the city legal department. Mr. Nick Schmidt's here. This is a shall issue permit if it meets the evaluative criteria.
Yeah, I was going to have you go back one slide too, if you could, on your.
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioners, Planning Commission. I would just remind that the Planning Commission to operate within the bounds of the Land Development Ordinance. I think that's where Planner Diedrichsen was going with bringing me up here. So the Planning Commission, of course, is free to make the decision as they see fit based on the findings of fact that they make and the application of the law to that. So just keep that in mind, go through the criteria and identify what your findings of facts are in your application of the law to the matter. That'd be my request. I can be available to answer any specific questions, but Chairman Offerdahl, if Commissioner or Vice Chair Bauman may speak.
Yes.
Yep. Thanks. I really appreciate that. And just for my colleagues and peers and those watching online, my thought process here is that when we develop something like our future land use map, it's really kind of a North Star for our community, right? It says this is kind of where we want to go, and then we can make decisions based on, are we moving towards this direction together, or does this decision veer away? And so when I see that our future land use map is moving towards a residential area or residential use for this lot, the idea of extending or even expanding commercial storage or temporary storage on this lot tells me that we're not moving towards that residential use. So that's kind of the criteria here that I'm using to justify this motion, is that it is granted a very short window of time in the grand scheme of things, but I don't see this as a change or a move or an action that really moves us towards that residential future land use. Now, Mr. Schmitz, I'm going to be point blank with you. I am not a lawyer, and you are. And so I want to make sure that the rationale, the criteria for denial of this interim use permit it has legal standing, because I also don't want our community to be in a lawsuit.
Commissioner or Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Bauman, I'll let Planner Diedrichsen speak with regard to the future land use map, but I would note that the current status of the property, in this case, Mr. Taylor's property, is what is used for considering the interim use permit. And so if...
So I guess my thought process and the reason why we recommended approval on this is that it didn't fail to meet any of the evaluative criteria laid out in the LDO for approving. So it does say the Planning Commission shall authorize an interim permit. It's different than a may. It's a shall. Only if it meets these criteria, and not that the future land use map and our comprehensive plan isn't important. It is not listed as a criteria item on which this application should be assessed. If the Planning Commission and Council believe that that is an important evaluative criteria, we could look at a text amendment to include that criteria. But currently, its future land use designation is not one of the evaluative criteria that was assessed as staff reviewed this application.
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Bauman, if I may expound on that a bit. So the four criteria, so it's a proper application process, right? And so the four criteria should be used by the Planning Commission to evaluate the application for the interim use permit. And ultimately, I would suggest reading through those and trying to determine if the facts are appropriate or not in your view. There's a couple broad criteria on there, and so that may be the proper way to analyze this, if I may suggest.
Chairman Offerdahl, if I could just add one more thing, because Commissioner Kibler had expressed concern about times of operation and materials to be stored. You can place, it says in here, Planning Commission, including a condition that the owner will, or here. Any condition that the Planning Commission has deemed appropriate for permission to use. So you as a Planning Commission, I did not provide an hours of operation recommendation for approval on the interim use permit. However, you can place, this interim use permit is tied directly to a flood control, removing trailer homes from a park that will be, the area that park currently sits in will be used for flood control. That's why the applicant was able to give us such a specific date. Like, he has to have this done by the end of this construction season, so he's going to be done by October. You could restrict him to only storing construction materials removed from the mobile home park for the flood control project. You could say no trucks allowed be outside of the hour. You can give him a 9 to 7 time frame to operate. You are absolutely allowed to impose any conditions that you feel are necessary for this use to not create a nuisance for adjacent properties.
And I believe you touched on that in your conditions of use, right? That you guys only allowed, or you recommended a single entrance, right? So that they were not going through.
Chairman Offerdahl, that is correct. One of our recommended conditions is that it has been brought up, the use of the residential lot for access to the southern portion of the lot. We recommended a condition of restricting the property owner to that north access. His area that he has designated in his application for storage is only accessible through the north entrance, which has an apron built and a proper access onto the road. So we felt it was reasonable to restrict the applicant to using that access for ingress and egress only, so that these materials are not being brought down to the access point on the southern part of the property that he has been using historically.
And one other quick follow-up. I mean, even if we were to deny this application, he can continue on using it as a gravel pit as he has been for years and years and years. I mean, it just goes back to the old ways. We're just looking for a temporary storage.
Chairman Offerdahl, that is correct. This gravel pit has existed as far back in the record as we can find. Associate Planner Falconer here went all the way back to 1974. So satellite imagery from 1974 clearly shows an active gravel pit on this location. It is an established legal non-conforming use. I will state that this would not be an allowed use under our current land development ordinance, but when it was under the county's jurisdiction as a highway commercial zone in the 70s, it was an allowed use. The use began, and we have no evidence that at any point the use has stopped for a long enough period of time for it to lose that legal non-conforming designation, and so it can continue as it has been done historically until we can provide proof that it has ceased for at least 1 year.
Then one last thing, can we maybe go through, October 17th is the deadline, right? Let's say if he doesn't get done on October 17th, how do we handle this, or how do we assure the neighborhoods that this is what's going to happen and this is the process that's going to take place?
Of course. Thank you, Chairman. So before Randy Taylor came to talk to the planning department, he was under investigation by the code enforcement department for this very same dumping. And so as he came to talk to us, he asked about this particular kind of permit. And as you can see from these evaluative criteria, we had no grounds to deny him in our office. So that is why it's here in front of you all now. If the October 17th date comes and goes and it is still all there, then it will move back into that code enforcement arm and it will be abated, most likely as a visual nuisance, but it would depend on the materials there and what other ancillary activities are happening as well. It could be a hybrid zoning nuisance violation, but it would follow through our code enforcement arm, which is a criminal prosecution.
Okay, Mr. Chairman and all of it then, I guess I could consider, I mean, there's a very short window here that this person is asking for this permit. If we were to limit what he can put into this pit to inert materials that are drawn from those mobile homes, inert materials, not materials with flashpoints, and also limit the traffic to daylight hours, I'm just wondering if people would be amenable to that, or because you say we kind of have to approve it, we just have the option of putting limits or restrictions on it. Am I right on that?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Kibler, I would never tell you you have to approve a permit. It is at your discretion to approve or deny interim use permits. What we're saying is that the interim use permit has a very specific evaluative criteria, and if you want to deny it, you have to provide a finding of fact within that evaluative criteria where this permit fails to meet this criteria, and this is why. Again, you can place any conditions that you want on the permit that are reasonable to prevent this use from causing a nuisance to adjacent properties.
And Mr. Diedrichson, then, just to confirm your sense that the future plan for the city is not in itself sufficient to deny this request?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Kibler, compliance or bringing the city or closer to compliance with the comprehensive plan is not included in the evaluative criteria. However, I will again state, if you feel that's important criteria, we can look at adding and criteria to this list. This is well, it's the land development ordinance, belongs to city council. Ultimately, it's up to them, but it is within your purview to make recommendations to the city council to make changes to the land development ordinance that you feel are necessary for the betterment of our community.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Diedrichson, I suspect then that we'll see how the vote goes, but I would reasonably submit that having inert materials taken from that mobile home site be the only ones that could be put in that pit, and daylight hours of operation be a reasonable restriction given the traffic that people have been upset with. But we've got a motion on the table. So how would that happen? If everyone voted no to deny, then we could have a new motion?
If
can run
the
roll,
motion
and
to
if it
deny fails,
then we can run a new motion after that, with you adding whatever recommendations
We'll
you
see how
want
it
added.
goes. I think I'm like fourth in the vote, but I would be willing to put restrictions on it that are in keeping with what we should be doing.
Commissioner Offerdahl, if I may, we're operating under standard Robert's Rules of Order, so if the motion fails, another motion can be brought, entertained, and so on and so forth. And then a comment I wanted to make with regard to Chairman Offerdahl's question about assurances the activity LCs appropriately at the deadline. There is an option within criteria number 4 about a financial surety that can be imposed as well.
Thank you.
And just to be clear on that, then a financial surety would be that we could require he have a bond.
Correct.
That's perfect. Yep.
So I think maybe for our neighbors and folks who are watching online, I'm the person who made the motion, and because of the criteria here, the legal standing of the city, I'm actually going to vote against my own motion. And the reason for that is because our hands are a little bit tied in terms of approving or not approving and what criteria we can use for denying this, like we're pretty backed into a corner. However, as a planning commission, we have the ability to impose a lot of conditions and recommendations upon this interim use permit. And so, again, I'm voting against it, but I'm voting against it with the intention of coming back to approve with more requirements and obligations that would meet and hopefully address a lot of your concerns that you've shared with us this evening. And so I'm just sharing that publicly.
Commissioner Wolf.
So we're going to vote to approve this and have it come back and make some changes? Is that the idea? Or are we going to try and make changes ahead of trying to vote on this?
You can vote yea or nay, but a vote of no would be that we would be not voting, we'd be voting against Commissioner Bauman's motion.
Construct the language.
Right.
And so a new motion would
is
come
to
forward
deny
again.
it. Yeah, so the current motion is to deny it.
Right.
So we're gonna make that vote first. So that's what you're voting on, is to deny the interim use permit.
And you can correct me too, on Robert's rules, you normally got to make a motion just to have the discussion portion of this. So we're going through the motion of it, have the discussion. Now we discussed ourselves out of it, maybe. Not all of us.
Chairman Offerdahl has succinctly summed up Robert's rules. It's a bit of a double negative in this particular motion, but really keep in mind the wording of the particular motion that was made. That is what's being voted on.
Correct.
So, Mr. Chairman, then a yes is a no for Mr. Bauman's motion, and a no.
No, a yes is for.
See, this is why we got to do this.
A yes would be a yes to deny this approval.
Thank you so very much, all of you collectively. Yeah.
So, any further discussion?
Chairman Offerdahl,
Yes.
just to ensure that I'm understanding correctly, we vote against it, and then we can have a new motion that implements things like no hazardous materials and hours of operation that are limited to ensure the quality of life of the people in the neighborhood, in the affected neighborhood, a bond to make sure that it does get cleared out or has the financial ability to clear it out. And then the only one access, which I believe was in the finding of fact anyway.
Yes, that's good. But I would like to point out that storage of hazardous material is already prohibited by the land development ordinance, and this permit does not ask for that. So that would be an immediate enforcement infraction if we were to find hazardous materials on these properties. You're more than welcome to include that in your conditions, but just so that you know, with or without that condition, storage of hazardous materials on this property is absolutely prohibited without the proper permits.
So, well, we can. I got one quick question though. So, for a financial surety, what does something like this even be recommended for a bond of some sort? Because I have no idea.
Chairman Offerdahl, generally we allow for bonds or irrevocable lines of credit for the cost of remediation of whatever we're trying to prevent or make sure gets done, plus 10%. And that's just to adjust for inflation. Usually these permits and what we're doing is it's a much longer time window. I doubt we'll get 10% inflation between now and October, fingers crossed, but that's just our general rule of thumb. How we do it is a bond or irrevocable line of credit for whatever the projected cost, and he would have to get a contractor to provide a quote for what they would charge to remediate, and then add 10%.
Okay, yep. Okay, any further discussion on Vice Chairman Bauman's motion to deny?
One question. The October timeframe, is that his date or yours?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Amick, it is a date self-imposed by the applicant. It was tied to the end of the construction season. After that, the weather might turn to the point where you can't pour concrete piers anymore, and therefore moving manufactured homes becomes next to impossible.
Okay.
Any further discussion? So right now we have a motion to deny the city's recommendations and finding of fact. with the second from Commissioner Wolf. So no further discussion, we'll call a roll.
Bauman,
No.
Iverson,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Kibler,
Nay.
Offerdahl,
No.
Pontanilla,
No.
Wolf,
No.
Amick,
No.
Doctor,
No.
Erickson.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, this would be the opportune time if we wanted to have a revised motion.
Yes, I'd make a motion to approve based on staff finding of fact with the additional conditions, and this is where you guys are going to help me out, with the additional conditions that operation only occurred during daylight hours, that only inert material be moved into this site, and that we have a surety bond of the cost for remediation plus 10%.
Would you allow for an irrevocable line of credit as well? It's something
Yes.
that we generally use.
Yeah.
Okay.
My
What else do we want to throw in?
daylight hour things might be too long. You got residential right there. I'm thinking like 9:30 to 1600 is my thoughts.
9:30 to 1600? Military language in there?
What time that is?
Yeah, instead of daylight hours, you're right. It could go to 11 o'clock. So till 1600 or 4 o'clock. And that would be all I would want to add, I think.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve based on staff's finding of facts, inert only, security bond in, what did you?
Cost of
Revocable
remediation
line
plus
of credit.
10%
Irrevocable. And then
line of credit.
9:30 to 1600 operation hours. Okay. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second that one too.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Kibler, second by Wolf. Let's have some discussion.
Can I propose an amendment to that motion at this time? Is this the right time to do it?
Chairman,
I
after
welcome
all,
friendly
Commissioner.
amendments.
I was just going to say, as a point of Robert's rules, an amendment can be made to the motion. That should be voted on as well, but I think typically this body probably has used friendly motions in the past, so.
So I'd like to propose the additional condition that the one point of entrance is gated so that the general public cannot drive in. It is only for purpose, so that the north access point is a gated entrance.
I'd accept that amendment, friendly amendment.
Wow, is that even possible?
Yes, absolutely. You can do
Okay.
a swing gate or just, you're barricading so that no one accidentally drives in is what you're looking for?
And so in the evening, it's a locked access point. The general public won't be accessing it.
Just reasonable.
So you're gaining the entrance to his lot, not gating a roadway?
Correct.
Okay.
Gating the entrance to his lot.
Okay, we have an amendment.
I have a question. Is that single access point off of 16th Avenue?
Yes.
Is that the road to the north?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Amick, yes, it is off 16th Avenue Southeast.
So we need a second on the amendment.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Erickson. Any discussion on the amendment? Because then we'll vote on the amendment if that passes, right? And then if it
Yeah,
fails, we'll go to the official.
Chairman, after all, that'd be fine, yeah.
Oh, what's the right way?
Couple variations on Roberts for this process, but that one's fine.
I have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
In the previous slide, there was something in there about a permanent addition. He can't do anything permanent under this. Would a gate constitute that? I believe it was somewhere in there.
Commissioner Offerdahl, Commissioner Erickson, usually the interim use is the one that cannot be permanent. It's designed as an activity that always has a termination date. As of right now, Mr. Taylor is entitled to fence in his property and can do so under the C2 zoning with, say, chain link and privacy slats.
Thank you.
For all commissioners, I would concur with Associate Planner Falconer. That the use for the permit is the storage of material. Property can be gated in accordance with our normal fencing and gating ordinances.
Thank you. Any further discussion? You ready to read this back?
Do we have to vote on the amendment first?
I
Amendment, vote first,
Wanna
and
vote
then
amendment,
vote
vote
on
first.
motion, yes, with the amendment, with
So-
or without the amendment.
Yep.
Okay.
Chair Offerdall, the vote would be on the amendment, which will close discussion on the amendment. Then that will reopen discussion on the either amended or not amended original motion.
Right. Unless Commissioner Kibler wants to withdraw his motion, right?
Correct. It would be back to just having the original motion on the table.
Mr. Chairman and everyone, exactly what am I supposed to do now? What is it expected of me?
I think you're good.
I've made a motion. I want to withdraw that motion?
No, we'll go down with Commissioner Bauner's amended.
I would just suggest to Chairman Offerdall that a vote be held if discussion's concluded on the amendment.
Right.
Pardon?
This vote is just for Tim's amendment.
Okay, first vote on the additional amendment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good? Okay. Bauman?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Kibler?
Yes.
Offerdahl?
Yes.
Pontanilla?
Yes.
Wolf?
Yes.
Amick?
Yes.
Doctor?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The motion carries to add a gated area to Commissioner Kibler's original motion. Any discussion? Okay. Any question on what the motion is? Do you want to read it back? Sure. Why don't you just
Okay, so the motion is to approve based on staff's finding of facts and recommendation with the additional conditions of operating during 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., inert material only, and having a bond or irrevocable line of credit plus 10%. And we already voted on the amendment of the one port of entrance is gated.
any
Okay.
discussion? Okay, call a roll.
Bauman?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Kibler?
Yes.
Offerdahl?
Yes.
Pontanilla?
Yes.
Wolf? Yes. Amick?
Yes.
Doctor?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Chairman Offerdahl, before you read through the entire public hearing notification, I just wanted to let you know that case 2025-22 CUP for Simplot has been withdrawn by the applicant. So we can just skip it in the agenda if you didn't want to read the public hearing notification.
So it got withdrawn.
Yes.
Okay. So we're moving on to agenda item number 6. Miscellaneous and discussion items.
With that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Falconer, the Associate Planner, who has a presentation to give you on our sign code.
All right.
Sir.
All right, Chairman Offerdall, Council. Last time we spoke, I brought up the fact that the sign contractors and I had a conversation about how Minot kind of administered its sign code, and I was going to do some background research to see how we kind of stacked up against the overall North Dakota cities. And so I reached out to each planning department and building department in Bismarck, Fargo, Grand Forks, and I have kind of compiled a little, I promise, a short presentation about signs. So Minot didn't have a sign code really. It was signs were just considered buildings until about 2013. So a lot of our boom era buildings were built without these kinds of restrictions in place. It's important to note, as those buildings now, as they age, are trying to be re-signed under our much more restrictive rules, leading to some issues, which is why we're talking today. So our current sign code mostly comes from 2021. We found the regulations basically break down into several categories. So you have your detached, your wall, and your temporary signs. So detached signs are the pole signs you see around. They're the ones McDonald's has, and any fast food restaurant will have a pole sign. Wall signs are anything that are attached to buildings. Temporary signs are like the sandwich boards or things like of that nature that you see, banner signs, the little inflatable arm flailing tube men, stuff like that. The signs in the public right of way, the directional and traffic signs, really aren't part of this, and they're regulated by the municipal code and the police and engineering departments. So the purpose of our sign code is, and I'm not going to read all of these. The ones I want to highlight are the first two: accommodate the rights of individuals to freedom of speech, promote equity among business and other typical sign users, enable fair and consistent enforcement of sign standards, recognize the legitimate signage needs of businesses and other interests to communicate messages, provide identification, and enable wayfinding through the city for tourists and residents. I feel that the way we have our sign code set up is we have a scaling lot frontage, but you can hit those frontages very quickly. At 3 square feet per 1 foot of lot frontage, up to 150 square feet would equal a lot size of about 50 feet. And for older Minot, 50 feet of lot frontage would be a very traditional small lot size. But as our lot sizes increase, most of these properties qualify for the maximum all the time, every time. And however, since it doesn't scale past those points, it doesn't incentivize the bigger buildings. They don't get more signs to be proportional to them, so they get stuck with smaller signage. The dominant sign types in Minot are the pylon, pole, and wall signs. And they are vastly skewed to the commercial areas. There's not a lot of residential permits that I process. There's not a lot of industrial permits even. It's mostly all commercial signs and the turnover of those businesses. And so here, just to reiterate, it requires only 50 to 66 feet of lot frontage to hit our maximums. Most lots are far larger. To give you some estimates, like Brokers, I think it's Brokers 12 on Broadway is about 120 and 120. You hit up at the Home Depot stage, that's 600. A lot of our hotels are at the 400 feet of lot frontage. And so we do have a way to get past it as the master sign plan, but the master sign plan has very rigid use tables in it that, like, for example, if you're a hotel who's large, who has that 400 feet of frontage, but you have to have an indoor restaurant and a convention center to qualify for the bigger pool of sign codes. So only the one in the Dakota Square Mall is the one that can qualify for it. So they're able to have as much signage basically as they want because the frontage is so large on the mall. Whereas, say, Comfort Suites right off Broadway and Highway 2, you'll notice their sign is much smaller because they hit that 200 square foot maximum and they want to sign all 4 sides of their building. And so in doing my research, in comparison, Bismarck actually does not have, and this is only for commercial districts, mind you, they have no maximum allowable area or number of signs. They do limit their pole signs just to decrease clutter, but those pole signs could be whatever size the owner would want, and there is a natural limit of, because those pole signs will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they kind of have a natural cost limit to them. Not saying someone couldn't go crazy, but Bismarck has deemed that an acceptable risk. Fargo and Grand Forks are both very similar. They have just simply tweaked their square foot of signage per linear foot, and then they add a facade as well. So they will do a lot frontage or a facade of a structure, whichever is greater. So the whichever is greater is the key part. as it allows whatever the defining character of the property is to be the delimiter of how big a sign they can have. So if it's a very small lot but a very tall building, you're not hamstrung. So a great example of this is the Metro, it's the Metro Center off of 20th Avenue Southwest. That lot has a good amount of lot frontage, but the way the building is designed, it's an L. And that L, the short stubby part of the L, is not able to be counted towards the actual allocation of the building. So right now it's currently completely oversigned, and as tenants try to go in there, they aren't able to actually get signs because it's already oversigned. And so these kinds of scaling mechanisms are what we would like to see. And so staff would support a scaling option like Fargo and Grand Forks to keep signs proportional to the buildings they will advertise. What we would need to do is to take our current code, we can leave the 3 feet per 1 foot, linear foot of lot frontage, and just remove the maximum and then add a percent building facade, whichever is greater. In Minot, we currently have a 20% for regional shopping malls, but only for regional shopping malls. So, and with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for city staff?
Yeah, Mr.
Very well
Chairman,
done.
what percentage are you recommending?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Kibler, I would recommend the 20%, kind of the middle of the road between Fargo and Grand Forks. The 20% works well for the regional malls I've dealt with. It's a very easy calculation for both the sign companies and for staff to understand and agree on. A lot of times when you get into the lot frontages, and if there's little jogs in it and all that, sometimes it's difficult to come to a consensus of where shared boundaries are if it's a multi-tenant structure and stuff like that. So.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Brown.
Mr. Falconer, I really appreciate the work and all the legwork, especially that went into comparing things. I'm wondering if we can go ahead and direct staff to bring us a proposed change to the sign code at our August meeting, I think, for us for consideration there, or if they would prefer kind of at the fall cleanup or winter cleanup.
If I could, Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Baumann, we'll go over this here when we get back to that agenda item, but we did not receive any applications for the July Planning Commission. You guys get the week 4th of July off. So Dan and I had talked about doing a summer tax cleanup because we have that month available to us now to focus on both this text amendment and other text amendments that have been discussed here prior. So getting some of those cleaned up during this month, we could bring you a proposal in August.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could sort of ask largely then, and maybe you covered this, but do we have a definition of a sign? Does it have to be linked specifically directly to business? For example, Mr. Baumann has been instrumental in getting this artwork up on the grain elevator downtown. Is that a sign?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Kibler, that is a mural. And as long as they don't paint a large Coca-Cola bottle on it or something, well, we're going to be all right. That wouldn't require any kind of permit. So no call to action or anything like that.
Okay, but we don't have a definition.
We have a definition.
Okay.
I'll read it to you if you'd like.
I think I'm good.
I just need to find
want
it,
know
but
that
yes.
we've got one.
For sign, we have definition for pole sign, wall sign, pylon sign, what's the other, monument sign. Okay. We've defined them all. Yeah. So there is a definitions section in the sign code itself, has its own definitions section.
I have highlighted the definition there if you'd all like to read it.
And again, we were just looking for some guidance here. It's another one of those things we found we want to clean up and get more concise. And
we briefly touched on this not very long ago with like the Gate City Bank signs, right? Where we kind of started down a path with the different a billboard style sign or something that they wanted to put on a corner.
Yeah, that was we call it a pylon sign.
Yeah, there you go.
And we also touched on when the Big M was being remodeled, signage, but that kind of touches on this facade idea of the facade. It's a small lot, big building, needs more signs as the floors go up. We can kind of get all of that more concise as well in here.
Absolutely.
And I'll just say the teacher in me says you get brownie points or bonus points if you can do the text amendment in a way that helps preserve the character and uniqueness of our community, our businesses, and we don't want to necessarily become the next Fargo and Grand Forks. We want to be unique, but we also want to be aware of business restraints or constraints.
All right. I had one more. It's, again, I promise, short presentation to give to the Planning Commission. Several times recently, our notification process has been talked about, questioned, brought up. I wanted to give you guys, at the end of all of our findings of fact, you see that little disclaimer we put on there. This was notified in compliance with Century Code and with the City of Minot ordinance. So I'm going to give you a little glimpse behind the curtain as to how that actually happens. Is this not showing? Uh-oh. I'm going to X out of here. See if I can get it to come back up. Here.
I will second that. We were the talk of the city council last night for a little while.
Yeah. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit, like I said, a glimpse behind the curtain. We talk about the property owners talk about this letter that they got. Well, here's the letter that they actually receive. It includes that public hearing notification that Chairman Offerdahl gets to read at the beginning of each application. It then goes through, this is how you can get a hold of planning staff for additional information. We include the map on the back. In fact, this letter that goes out to property owners is the only published document that we put out there that has my direct email on it. So you don't have to go through the phone chain, and you can email me directly if you receive this. If you have questions, just straight to the top of the planning division to ask your questions if you have any. But it's important to point out that when we say we've done this legally, at the beginning of the month, the application deadline is at the end of the previous month. So at the beginning of the month, Dan and I and staff, we sit down, we look at, all right, these are the applications we have. Within that first week, I write that public hearing notice for each one of the applications that we've received. That is that paragraph that we read at the beginning of each case here at the Planning Commission. It's vague, it's legalese, it just gives the legal description and tells you what they're asking for. After we have that public hearing notification written, I send it out to staff, we proofread it, all right, it looks good. That public hearing notification is uploaded to the website within the second week of the month. And that's to make that available to the public so they at least you get a glimpse of what the Planning Commission is going to talk about at the next Planning Commission very early by reading that legal description of what the public hearing is going to be about. Then that public hearing is uploaded online by Hannah. She puts it online, and on My Daily News has their own portal for publishing this. That is done very early in the month as well, because there are specific dates and times or days that they publish public hearing notifications. And as you can see from our little, this worksheet on the left, this actually sits on my desk in printed form. And as the dates go by, I sit and check off and make sure this is how I'm supervising that staff work is being done, is by checking off each one of these as the date goes by. So it gets published in the Minot Daily News. Again, this is still, it's a very legalese. Then we put together the notices to property owners. We do expand on the information. And within that letter, we do tell them how to find out everything that you could possibly want to know about this. From everything we received in the application to all the research that we've done on the property so far, all the information that we've gathered. You can ask me to update you as I continue to gather information or as Dan continues to gather information on applications. I mean, we're all working together to try to get as much information to bring to you guys so you have as comprehensive a picture as you can to make a decision. But as we're going through that, any member of the public can just call us up and ask it. We're more than happy to provide what information we have to them. Now we're getting towards the end of the month. That last final step in public hearing notification is we do publish the packet. That is the actual packet that you guys get an email. We publish it online. We also send that, I forgot to talk about department head packet. So do you guys, the department head packet is an important notification device as well. So that would be in like week 2 of the month. That goes out to not only the department heads of the city, but it goes county engineer gets it, the county planner gets it, the water board gets it. Excel Energy is on that list. Anyone who has a stake in land use. MDU, schools, chamber, we could spend an hour listing all of the different people that are, it's a very long list. So we are emailing that directly to a contact at that organization as well. But then the packet goes out the last week of the month. We also send it out to the applicants themselves for comment. And then, of course, right at the end of the month, we post that packet online with a link. Just go to the planning division. So what I kind of wanted to point out here is that the notification process starts very early with the legal public hearing notice being published as soon as we can get it out, being published online and in the papers. And then we do as much as we can to notify the adjacent property, everybody inside the pink ring, you know. That notification buffer that we show you, every person in there gets a letter. And it's a very mechanical process. We punch this into GIS. GIS generates this buffer, and it grabs every address within that buffer, and it auto-generates a list in Excel. That is put into a mailing list, and everybody on that list gets a letter. The only removal from that list is duplications. If Bob Johnson owns 2 properties next to each other, we don't send him 2 letters. We send one to the one with the mailing address, which is where his house is. But those are the only lines that would be removed from that auto-generated list is if you have a duplicate recipient. Otherwise, everybody inside it, everybody who owns property, has stake in a property, gets a letter. If Bob owns his house and the property next door is owned by him and his sister in a trust, then he does get 2 letters, to make sure that sister is informed as well. Public schools, absolutely, they have a mailing address, so if they are within the notification area, they would receive it at the district office. All of their properties have the same mailing address, but the district office receives a letter if a school's district property falls within the notification area as well. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of when we say that it was publicly noticed, all of the steps that we're going through, and we are making sure each one of us is making sure we're getting our job done to make sure that that public hearing is legal, so that our city attorney can tell the city council, yes, we did in fact legally notice this public hearing. All of the information is always available in our office during office hours. You can stop in. And through FOIA requests, you can get copies of everything we have, including our notes. It's all public information. So I just wanted to make you all kind of aware of the steps that do take place in this public noticing. We want to make the public aware. We want the public to get engaged. We want to hear from them. We want them to know what's happening in their neighborhood as early as possible. That's that in a nutshell. So I guess this is just a discussion. I could answer any questions if you have any.
Oh, thank you, and I appreciate that definition, because it has been questioned a little bit here lately, so thank you for taking the time to talk about that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do just have a couple questions, and they're not related to each other, but I think they're related to what you've just spoken to. And one is, so given the procedure by which you notify the world when somebody puts in a request, when do they have to put that request in to make it to a particular planning commission meeting? So we're here in the first Tuesday of the month. when does a request have to be submitted officially, formally to you to make all these steps happen?
Online, we do have a schedule of deadlines for Planning Commission, and then we also have a separate schedule for minor plats. Those are the plats that don't come to you, that the staff and I just, well, we don't necessarily approve it, we just bring it directly to the city council. It only requires a single reading, it doesn't need a preliminary. So there are other types of applications that don't come here and go directly to city council. Both of those deadline schedules are on the planning division website.
Okay, and then just one unrelated, but I think related question is, when we looked at the Lichty request, you mentioned that there were limits because of trespassing issues to what angles you could get on the property. Is that an issue of not being able to trespass in order to get the right information, say, to us and to others? What restrictions are there on your gathering the information that people need?
If a property is open to the public, the staff is welcome to go on it, just like any other member of the public. We generally stay off of private property unless we've been granted explicit permission to enter it. Just, it's private property. Yeah. So unless, Dan took those photos from a parking lot. That parking lot is open to the public. He took the pictures during normal business operating hours when anyone is allowed to just come into that parking lot to do business within that business. And so he was free to enter that parking lot and take the pictures. That back agricultural lot is not open to the public. It's my understanding that it's even posted. I think I saw no trespassing signs on the property. So just
do
like
you
anyone
otherwise
else,
go
we
up and,
don't
like,
enter
knock on
private property.
doors of people and say, do you mind if we take photos from your land? Does that come up?
We don't usually go that far when it comes to taking site photos. 99% of the time, we can get a picture of what we're looking for from a public right-of-way or a parking lot or a sidewalk that's open to the public.
Or the applicant to that household.
Yeah. Or the applicant says, yeah, you can come on and take a picture of it. But yeah. In this case, it was a mobile home community, and yes, the applicant owns the property beneath, but he has leased lots on top of that. And in order to get back there, we would have had to go to those individual unit owners and ask permission. It was just easier to take a picture from the parking lot.
Okay, any other miscellaneous or discussion items? Thank you, guys. Anything else to discuss? I believe we have to discuss an August meeting.
Oh, yeah. Just a note to let you guys know, it's been mentioned before, we did not receive any applications for the July Planning Commission. So unless chairman or members of the commission have an issue or an item for which you would like us to meet in July, we recommend that you make a motion to modify your schedule and just simply cancel the July Planning Commission meeting and meet again in August.
And then the August date too, didn't we have to shift that around?
Oh, yes, the August meeting, we do, the date you guys had chosen is not available. The soonest available date after the mayoral election is August 12th, which would be the next Tuesday after, it'd be the third Tuesday.
Okay.
No, second Tuesday, sorry, second Tuesday of the month. So I guess what we're looking for is a motion to modify the schedule of the Planning Commission to cancel July's Planning Commission meeting and move the August Planning Commission meeting to August 12th.
I'd move to eliminate the July meeting and to move the August meeting to the second week to the August 12th date.
At 5:30.
It's important that we note that it will take place on August 12th at 5:30 p.m. in the council chambers at City Hall.
August 12th at 5:30 p.m. in the council chambers, City Hall.
Thank you.
Motion.
Okay, so we got a motion.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Erickson. Discussion. Does August 12th work for everybody?
It does not work for me, but I'm not offended with you all having a meeting without me.
It also does not work for me.
Too far out for me to tell.
Okay.
I'll be here.
Okay.
As usual, Hannah will call out to you the
Right.
Friday before and make sure that we have a quorum and let you know if we could not get a quorum.
You know, and it's never happened before, but maybe we get 2 months off.
They don't dock our pay.
So, okay, if no further discussion, let's call a roll.
Bauman,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kibler,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Pontanilla,
Yes.
Wolf, Amick,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, any further miscellaneous or discussion items?
And just so we're clear, that deleted the July
Yes.
one as well?
Yeah,
Perfect.
that was the first portion of
Thank
his
you.
motion, and then also to
Awesome.
include the shift, so. All right, seeing none, we'll call to adjournment. Meeting adjourned.